Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It's my pleasure to introduce Margaret. I want to tell you just a little bit about her background before I hand it over to her. Margaret came in September, and she was originally supposed to stay all the way through the summer too, but COVID keeps changing plans on us, and so she's about to take off for Denver, Colorado. She's originally from Richmond, Virginia, where she sometimes helps her family's restaurant, but she went to university at Tulane in New Orleans. And at Tulane, she finished up during the pandemic for her last semester and has a dual major in environmental biology and in English. So we knew coming in that she was going to be jumping in already in the midst of the pandemic, and we weren't quite sure, from month to month what her education experience would be, internship experience would be. But she was game to come and give it a try. And it turns out the whole time she was here, we were never able to have a tour for the public in the whole 9 months that she was here, which is really unfortunate. But she was very creative and came up with a really fantastic virtual program for the schools. And I just thought it was fantastic, and I'm excited for her to talk about it with you today. So we both made it through together, and I could say it was a lot of fun to have her in the office. She was always able to keep things positive, and just loved her creative ideas. She ended up helping with all kinds of things we hadn't thought of doing when she first was hired. So she's going to give a big overview of all the different kinds of stuff she worked on, and then focus in on her that creative project that I mentioned. So with I think that's it for me. And Margaret, take it away.
Hi there, Dustin. Thank you so much for your introduction, and thank you to Laura for getting this Zoom started. So today, as Dustin mentioned, I will be talking about what the Archbold Education Department did this year in light of COVID, because we did stuff that we've never done before, and we didn't do things that we've always done before. So that is what I'll be talking about today. Ooh, gotta click this. There we go. Dustin gave most of this background, but a little bit of who I am and why I am talking to you all today. As he mentioned, I went to Tulane University. I have degrees in environmental biology and English. I have 4+ years of outdoor education, environmental education. And since September of this past year, I have been the Jill Abrahamson Memorial Environmental Education Intern. I want to take a quick second just to thank the Abrahamson family for all of their support. I unfortunately was never able to meet them due to COVID, but still via email, they've been wonderful, wonderful support, and I obviously would not be here without them. So a major, major thank you in advance. And then I'd like to say I'm also the self-appointed Archfold Zoom / Facebook Live princess. I would definitely say Laura Reed, without a question, is our queen. She'll always take the crown for that. But I did a lot of my job here on the Archfold Zoom account and our Facebook account. And that's kind of a preview as to what the rest of this presentation will look like. So throughout this presentation, I'll talk about 3 major things. The first will be our virtual program and what we did all this year in light of COVID, and can kind of give a review of that. And then I will talk about a few special events we took part in. And then lastly, as Dustin mentioned, I will be going into my intern presentation, my intern project, which was a choose your own adventure. So diving right off into it, the biggest thing really that we did this year was our weekly virtual nature walks. I'm sure a lot of you have either participated or seen some of these nature walks. They happened every Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. and a little bit more into them. They were weekly and they were streamed on Zoom and Facebook Live. They took place between January and April, and they were 45-minute programs. Each program was unique with new topics and guests. The list of the guests is to the right side of the screen. It is extensive. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody who came on and helped us. You all really were the best part of these nature walks, and the audience absolutely loved you all. And some of the topics that we covered, and I mean, I have a list here. I mean, this doesn't even really scratch the surface, but we talked about birds and snakes, all sorts of different types of plants out in the Florida scrub. the Predator Prey Lab came on, skulls, fire, gopher tortoises, invasive species, intern projects. Really, if it has to do with Archbold, we probably covered it a little bit at some point on our virtual nature walks. And what was fun about this project, is that it needed 2 individuals to run it, so a host and a moderator. Typically, Dustin was the host. He was out in the field with his selfie stick. I'm sure you've all seen videos or maybe pictures of him doing this. And he was crawling on the ground and, getting high up on his tippy toes and looking all over the place, all over Archbold, finding really cool things to explore and talk about. And then also the less glamorous position was the moderator, which most of the time was me. So sitting in the education office, fielding any tech issues, working through questions and asking them, as well as showing videos and really doing the whole Zoom setup there. And so as a kind of a review of how many people we interacted with over this, our estimated participants is about 300. And that leads me right into talking about our biggest challenge with this entire school year. And those, our biggest challenge can really be broken down into attendance and tracking, although they go hand in hand. The first off is that Dustin and I tried all sorts of things to raise our attendance. We post on social media, we had newspaper articles, we were in newsletters, we reached out individually to teachers and principals all over the state of Florida. We actually talked to the Department of Education in Florida. We really were pushing our programs out there, and we just continued to not get that much attendance. This was really frustrating for us. We felt like we had just such amazing programs, and we weren't really able to get the audience interaction that we wanted with them. And then to make that attendance more difficult, it was really difficult to track how many people were actually coming. As I said, we were streaming on Zoom and Facebook. Zoom, it's pretty easy to track who comes. However, we had schools participate, and so there would only be one device, but there'd be 30 students watching. Or, we had families watch all the time, grandparents and grandkids. And so we were never entirely sure what one device meant with how many people. And then as well, Facebook Live is quite a difficult thing to track because there might only have been 10 people who watched the entire program all the way through when it was being live. And then it can sit on Facebook for a week and 5,000 people can watch 45 seconds of that program or could watch the entire thing. And there's no way to really know how much participation they had in that program, how much they're paying attention. And so that's definitely a skewer for how many people are watching. And then to even add on to that further, we were posting these videos on YouTube and kind of that same issue here. There's slowly but continuously more people watching them on YouTube. And so our estimated participants is really, the estimation is the key word there because it was quite a big challenge for us to know how many people were coming and watching our programs. However, there are people that definitely did come and watch our programs, and we're so thankful to all of them. And the people that did come and participate with us, we had a lot of really positive responses. I'm not going to read out all of these, but the one I'll read at the top is, I watch a lot of webinars during this time, and this is one of the most original and overall best I've seen. That's great feedback to have. Another one is, students could ask questions right then and there, and they were answered, and it was free and easily accessible. People always love that. And then in the bottom corner, a constant compliment that we got was, Dustin, you have a real talent for pulling all that new information into a memorable experience. And really, I want to give a shout out. Dustin made these programs. He's been such a wonderful mentor to watch interact with the public, even though it was over virtual. Means he never lost his enthusiasm. He was so excited all the time, and really is what made our program so special and successful with the people that were viewing them. We did have more one-on-one programs. So our Snakes and Skulls classroom visit, this was a 30-minute program. The first 15 minutes focused on Poser, our pine snake, and then the next 15 minutes focused on our skull collection. Often these programs went over because we had so many questions from students. It would typically be either Dustin or myself. What's really nice about this program is there only needs to be 1 or 2 hosts. There doesn't need to be a moderator. So sometimes Dustin would do snakes and I would do skulls, or vice versa, or one of us would just do the entire program ourselves. And we were directly talking to one class, maybe 2 classes, and the kids could come up, we could see their faces, they could ask questions themselves, and that was really great. Our estimation is that we did this with about 12 classrooms. Again, the estimation problem, although it was a lot easier to track this, there were definitely classes that would sign up and just say this is one class, and then we'd get on and there'd be 2 or 3 classes on there. And so again, I'm pretty sure 12 is correct, but there are always surprises with this, as there always are with virtual programs. And I thought I would just share this fun video. I had never handled snakes before, and obviously you all can tell I was a natural at it. Just kidding. I definitely, it was a learning curve figuring out. You can't hear the end of this video, but I'm telling Dustin that I'm being suffocated. I was not being suffocated. Poser wouldn't do that. And I am really proud of my snake handling skills at the end of the year. And so that was just another accomplishment of mine. Oh, and next. We don't need to watch that again. There we go. Other school year responsibilities that I had, taking care of Poser and Pinky, as I've mentioned. We did create a Wix website for our education school year, where we had resources for teachers and places to book our programs. And along with that, I managed the booking systems, approving bookings, and making sure everyone has the correct Zoom link, all those little details like that. I helped create social media posts for our programs. And I also reached out to schools along with Dustin, again, trying to get more of that audience participation and student interest. As well, some other side things I did was I attended the Organization of Biological Field Station committee meetings, along with Dustin often, and I assisted in other Archbold and League of Environmental Educators in Florida, or LEAF, a bunch of their Zoom events. And like so many of us on this Zoom call, I participated in the Eagle Haven Science Blitz a few weeks ago, which was great. And I would just like to point out, this is the picture in the bottom right corner, was the winning entry of the LEAF 2020 Halloween Pumpkin Decorating Conference, which I'm proud of. I got a t-shirt, and that is Poser just being the world's most perfect model. So moving on, there are 2 special virtual education events that I'd like to bring attention to that we did that were sort of different than how we usually would interact with them. The first is the North American Association of Environmental Education's annual conference. Usually the education intern goes in person, and that again is from the very kind generosity of the Abrahamson family. And this year it took place virtually, obviously. It was in October. It was really wonderful. There was over 400 presenters. 2 of the keynote speakers that I just really, really adored was Dr. Kendi, who is the author of How to Be an Anti-Racist, and Dr. Johnson, who is a well-known marine biologist, as well as podcast host and author. She's really awesome. And this was only my 3rd week at Archbold, and it was such a great way to start the year. It was really inspiring, and I'll mention it later on. It really set the pace for how I was going to be working in the virtual field. It did look like the picture on the right. It was just at my desk, as fun as being there, but it was, and I really had a fun time doing that. And then the second virtual conference that we took part in was the LEAF annual conference. So again, the League of Environmental Educators in Florida. And this was a really wonderful experience because I was able to participate in planning sessions, the actual conference, and also post sessions where we were editing recordings. And so it was a really wonderful education experience to be able to see just every little detail that went into this conference. And approximately there are about 85 attendees, and I got to moderate sessions. That was amazing because I got to moderate along with Dustin, the I guess creators and runners of Fiends for Wild Green Memes, which is my favorite ecology meme Facebook page. And so that was kind of a nerdy dream come true for us. And as well, I edited these recordings at the end. So again, it was a wonderful experience that I wouldn't have necessarily had this not been a virtual program. And that was really cool and really unique. And so lastly, going into my intern project, as I've mentioned, it was a choose your own adventure. And it really all came to me when I was attending the North American Association of Environmental Education conference this October. I was attending a talk, and a college level professor said that he's trying to give students the autonomy in the virtual classroom. And how he was doing that at a college level was giving them a weekly assignment, but there are multiple options as to how to complete it. And then they got to choose how they wanted to complete the assignment and how they want to interact with what they were learning. And I just love this idea. I think something that's so amazing about being in the field and when students come to visit Archbold is that they're going to go out into the field and they'll listen to what they'll listen to what you're saying, and they'll look at what you're pointing out, but they're also going to look around for themselves and they'll ask questions completely unrelated to what you're talking about because they make an observation and they want to know more about something that isn't necessarily what you're specifically talking about. And they have that autonomy. They have that opportunity to choose what they want to ask about and learn about next. And that's definitely, I feel, missing from the virtual field right now. A lot of kids are just seeing PowerPoints and pictures, and they don't really get that choice there. And so that's where my Choose Your Own Adventure really was inspired from. And so in November, I began to workshop this idea. Dustin and I had worked with schools to know what type of program would work with them virtually. So we knew they wanted about a 30 to 45-minute program that they could fit into a free period, things like that. And that was really helpful knowing these constraints to work under. And then I was finding participants for interviews. And you'll see this picture right here. This is one of the many, many sort of mock-up plans of how this PowerPoint was going to function. And just for a brief overview, I believe you can see my mouse. So how the program worked is students would start here at AB, and that was just an introductory video. And in the final presentation, what it was is that they ran into Dustin in the field. And after a video of Dustin introducing himself, there were two choices. They could either ask Dustin this B1 kind of section, which was ask him what are antlions, or they could ask Dustin, which is this B2 section right here, they could ask Dustin more about the Lake Wales Ridge. And so classes were able to choose. Spoiler alert, kids are pretty predictable and they always asked about antlions. They are the cool sounding choice and they always chose it. And then depending what they picked, so they always picked antlions, they would go on to section C, and then C would have two more options they could choose, which would lead to new options and so on until the very end of the program. There's tons of different areas of Archbold, which are just little videos where they could end up. And so that's kind of an overview of how that presentation ended up working. And then in December, I began to film interviews and BRoll, so a lot of videos of our ecosystem, and also edit videos and create the PowerPoint. So the evolution of Choose Your Own Adventure, the first run was on February 26th. And I will be honest, it went better than I thought it would. I was very nervous, but there were definitely little things that I knew that I wanted to improve. The first one is I knew I wanted to reorder the slides. I kind of figured as I went through with the class that, you know, you'll see later on, there's a great interview with Mandy from Mandy West. And afterwards, there's an option for kids to go look at Lake Annie, and I think I want to say the wetlands. But Mandy had been talking about gopher tortoises the whole time. And I have a Red Hill video that shows gopher tortoises. And I realized that I hadn't really thought through how naturally that would make more sense for students to ask about gopher tortoises and then go look for gopher tortoises or signs of gopher tortoises. So reorganizing those slides to make it feel like the walk was as natural as possible was something that I had to work on and kind of go through a few different avenues to figure out what works best. And then the second thing, and this is definitely what changed the project, this made the Choose Your Own Adventure the project I was really trying to make it, is that I decided to get more interaction between myself and students. And these projects, I will note, were being run like our Snake and Skull projects. So it was just myself and maybe one or two classes. And the students were collectively voting on which choice they wanted to make. And then they were just coming up and asking questions. So for more interaction, I decided to require students to either ask a question or make an observation after each video. And this, as I said, totally changed the project. The first, I want to say 2 runs, the kids were like, yeah, this is cool. Some of them asked some questions, but you know, they were like, all right, cool, thanks for the information. But after I required this interaction of making an observation or a question, it required the kids to put on what I call their observation eyes. All of a sudden, they weren't just focusing on whatever the video was supposed to be about, but they were looking around. They're looking at the sky and plants and the ground, and they were asking themselves what they wanted to know more about. And this is really what I've been striving for, is having that feeling of students following a tour guide in the field and looking at the ground and deciding something that they want to know more about. And it was really satisfying to see them make these connections. I'll talk about an example later, but that really was the best thing I think to happen to this project. And then also another adaptation I made was, at first, I was really worried that the presentation was going too fast and that I was going to have to go through the presentation multiple times. And I didn't want to do this at first because I sort of felt like it was going to ruin the illusion that the students were walking through the scrub here, but the total opposite was true. I think the students love being able to go through the presentation twice, and it's for two reasons. The first is that they got to see the impact of their choices. And I think it was really satisfying for them to know that they made a decision and that changed the outcome of what happened. And it really gave them the autonomy that they felt like they were having. I mean, that they were having, not felt like. And the other thing is that it forced them to choose options they wouldn't have originally. So as I mentioned, I every single student chose the ant lion question in the beginning of the presentation every single time. But information about the Lake Wales Ridge is really important to Dustin and I to share with the students. And so when we ran through the program multiple times, it required the students to go back and say, all right, well, we asked about the ant lions last time. Let's ask about the Lake Wales Ridge. And so it gave them more information than they were getting originally when I was only going through once. And so that was great for me too, because I felt like they were getting the kind of overall education that we really hope to give all the students that interact with us. And then the last thing is that I realized I could make the presentation malleable to the topics each teacher prefers. And that doesn't have to be the exact same choose your own adventure you're going through. And it was really actually pretty easy to edit and move the videos around, which was great. An example of this is a teacher wanted a Go for Tortoise specific presentation. So I just made Red Hill the ending for every single outcome. And we didn't do the presentation twice. And then when we got to Red Hill, there's a video of a gopher tortoise, and it opened up the conversation. Well, does anybody know what that animal is? Well, let's talk about its lifespan and what they eat and how they live in their burrows and things like that. So that was a nice thing to realize. The last time we did this presentation was May 15th, and this was also really satisfying for me because Dustin was able to run the program smoothly without any problems or my assistance. And that I'd been really hoping that this was a project that Dustin could continue to use in the education department once I was gone, and that kind of solidified that it was. So that was just a really great kind of ending, but hopefully this isn't the end of that project. And then some special thanks again to Mandy, Eric, Bobby, Anna, and Dustin for sharing their time and participating in interviews. They completely made the presentation. They're always the students' favorite part, and I would not have had, I think, such a successful project without them. So that all being said, I thought you would all like to choose your own adventure for a second. And so I'm going to play a quick video, and then after the video, Laura will give a poll to everybody. And this video is just me, I'm the camera person, obviously, walking up to Mandy in the field. And there's a little jingle playing in the background. The music isn't important. And this seems like a really simple video, but it's one of my favorite videos of the whole project. And it's mostly because it's so simple, but also the three most obvious questions, I feel like, are already at the bottom of the screen. And so if the students want to ask a question or make an observation, they can't be asking the obvious ones because they've already been stated. So it asks for the students to have a more thoughtful look at this video. And I have gotten just some really wonderful observations from it. One of my favorite observations was a young girl. She said, I noticed that the trees here are a lot taller than the trees in the previous videos you had shown, which was completely true. I had been filming the other portions, the beginning portions of this project in a more recently burned area. And so it opened up this whole conversation about fire in the scrub and controlled burns, and the students loved it. And it was so interesting. And it was just this moment that I thought, if they were here right now in the field, that student could make that observation and we could have this conversation. And that's really what I wanted this project to feel like, is that they were exploring on their own. And that's really what this video gave me. So I don't know if Laura's put out the poll yet. Oh, yes. Okay, so everybody go ahead and vote. And then I will end up selecting, obviously, what we vote the most of. Sorry if this Zoom screen is blocking. Alrighty, I'm gonna go ahead. Oh gosh, we're tied. Uh-oh. We're tied between what's your favorite Gopher Tortoise fact and what are you doing? And I'm gonna go ahead and click what are you doing? Which spoiler alert, sometimes you do have to cheat a little bit and things like this, and pick what you think the class would be most interested in. And the what are you doing video, I always get positive feedback. The kids love it. So I'll play this.
Oh, hi, I'm Amanda West. I work at Archbold and I am tracking tortoises today. We have a project where we put little radio transmitters on the back of a tortoise, and we put it on all our females that we have in this one area to try to figure out where they were living and how they moved throughout the year. We go every week and we find all our tortoises. Look what I just found. I'm getting close. I know I'm getting close because the beeps are getting louder. And look at this. Here's some fresh tortoise poop. So that means that the tortoise lives nearby here. You can see it's kind of like horse poop. She's got grass and sticks in there, and she didn't do a good job of chewing it up. You can see she doesn't have any teeth. But this is tortoise poo, and you can look in there and see what kind of foods they're eating sometimes.
So that's kind of what one of these standard videos would look like if there's a person being interviewed, a scientist being interviewed, really short, trying to keep their attention. And then I ask again for a question after this, or an observation. And that's, this is a great video that leads into a lot of really awesome questions I'm sure you can all imagine. Students love to talk about gopher tortoise poop. So it definitely was a really popular video. Oops, sorry. I clicked the wrong button.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and I work with the herpetology.
Whoopsies, there we go. So in review of my project, it reached roughly 180 students from all over Florida. And I'm hoping that this is an activity that can be used as a virtual program to reach more out-of-state students in the future, even once Archbold is open up to the public and hopefully Florida students are coming physically to see the property. I'm hoping that other students out of state can really get a chance to still be able to experience the scrub. And then other future steps I'd like to take. The first is I think that there's a great opportunity for more specific versions of this. So making a seasonal version or maybe a topic specific with a specific study organism, scrub jays, gopher tortoises, anything like that. And then lastly, I would love a way to create a stronger feedback system. After each presentation, I would email the teacher and thank them for being a part of it and also ask if there's anything I could do to make it a better program. And I typically got emails like this although they're great, I love to hear that the students loved the program. It's not necessarily going to make the program better. And I would love for there to be a system to figure out how to really get the stronger feedback. And so that all being said, that's a really brief overview of all the work that we've done this past year. Again, some thanks I'd like to give Chris and Abrahamson and their entire family. Their support has really meant the world to me, and I'm here because of them, and I cannot thank them enough and will continue to thank them. And then again, to my wonderful mentor, Dustin, I would not have been able to do any of these projects without his advice and guidance, and also just his faith in me to figure it all out. And Laura Reed, the Zoom queen. I had to learn a lot about Zoom and Facebook Live, and she was there to help me through all of it, as well as all the participants in the many, many virtual events. As I said earlier, you all make these. The audience loves seeing the scientists, and spending your time with us makes our job just so much more fun. And then, of course, lastly, the Archbold staff, the interns, my friends, and my family have supported me this whole time. So if there are any questions, I would love to answer them.
Great job, Margaret. That was wonderful. If you look in the comments, we just had a couple people saying, "Hey, this is great," and we do have a question that came in. I also the one thing that you didn't say that I was expecting is one of the weekly shows. I had just got my vaccine, and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. So we flipped it, and she ran the weekly in the field show, and for the guest she had her sister who's a an engineer, a robotics engineer. And so that was ended up being a really fun episode about her career path and about her sister and stuff. It was really cool.
Yeah, there is a screenshot from that nature walk, which that was also great because I loved being able to take Dustin's place for a little bit. It's really difficult. Dustin makes it look like what he does is really easy out in the field, but it's difficult to lead entire conversation while holding a selfie stick up and trying to show a really specific little tiny thing, especially on Archbold Wi-Fi, which is tricky.
Yeah, and with those you can't see the kids; you're just looking at yourself in your phone. So we do have some questions here. Our new director of the plant ecology program, Aaron David, says, what new virtual program do you think will stick after the pandemic, and what kinds of programs might not?
Oh, that's a great question. And Dustin, you and I have talked about this a little bit. I think that the goal is to definitely keep a lot of these programs still running. I think that it opens up the demographic of students that we can interact with. And that's something that's really exciting for Archbold. I would hope that my Choose Your Own Adventure continues to stick. I definitely think that the nature walks will be something, maybe it doesn't happen weekly, maybe it's once a month, but we just had such positive feedback. And we had so many people from like upstate New York and a family that came every week from Virginia. That wasn't my family, non-related family. And they all loved them. And they always said it was the highlight of their week. And so I think that that would probably be the virtual program that would stay for the longest. But I think they're all great. And I think they all could continue, especially reaching out of state students.
Okay, one from Hillary. How is Archbold doing in comparison with other nonprofits, other learning centers, etc.?
Oh, that's a great question. And I guess I can answer only from my experience. And I'll say in two different ways. The first is that Archbold has done programs with other environmental nonprofits, and those tended to be really highly attended, and we really loved it. I felt like it was a great way to compare what we were doing with what they were doing and kind of meld them into similar programs. And I personally feel like Archbold has some of the best virtual programs, at least that I've had the experience. I know I sound biased, obviously, I created some of them, but I'm constantly impressed by the feedback that we get and also by what Dustin's able to come up with and recreate. And I've really just been following Dustin's lead for a lot of this. And that being said, there are programs that I've worked with that are totally different. I don't even know how to compare them. I used to be an educator at the International Wolf Center in Minnesota, and they do international programs where they have interns waking up at like 3 a.m. to Skype with a school in Korea, and they have an entire little room that's set up specifically for these. And they've been doing virtual programs for years. So I don't even know how to compare those two programs though, because something I think that's so amazing about ours is that it was created in a time where I feel like a lot of other educators were panicking. I mean, we were panicking, or I wasn't here, but Dustin has articulated that it was definitely really stressful, and it continued to be stressful throughout the year. And I feel like we've made some really, really fun, really educational programs. I feel like I'm kind of going now rambling on about how much I like our programs, but I do think that we stand quite well against other programs, not that it's not competition at all. And working with other organizations has been some of the best things that we've done. So.
Yes, and I'll add that the program that we did with the other group from Melbourne, their virtual field trips, they didn't do every week like us, but actually it was based on our whole format. So we know that we were having an impact, and other groups were looking at what we were doing and seeing it as a model. Okay. Oh, this is nice to see that Abe is on here. Warren Abrahamson, one of the sponsors for Margaret. This is really nice. He asks, what did you find most amazing about Archbold or Florida Scrub?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think, okay, bear with me. I thought the scrub was like 100 times more beautiful when I left it than when I arrived. And I know that sounds sort of bad, but when you experience the Florida scrub for the first time, you see that it looks like a lot of really similar plants, which it is above ground. It is definitely, and a lot of similar looking organisms. And the more time you spend getting to know the Florida scrub, it just like a million doors open. And even like the smallest little plot of land has so much that you could learn that at first when I got here, I was like, okay, yeah, I know the major 10 plants here and the major, animals that you'll find here. I'm totally good. And then I left being like, I know so little about the Florida scrub in the scheme of everything. And that was something I just loved, is that the more I learned about the Florida scrub, the less I felt like I know. And I mean, I think that's so amazing and so cool. So I guess that would probably be my favorite part about the Florida scrub. And Archbold, I have loved working there. I loved my opportunity to work with other labs. I think that was nice because I wasn't leading programs with people in person. I had more time to go in the field with other individuals and learn about what they were studying. And that was also really great.
Yeah, our next question is a little bit of the similar vein. This is from Flynn Hibbs, sorry. Amazing presentation, exclamation. Are there any other moments you had while doing the classroom choose your own adventure that stood out to you? I guess like maybe an anecdote or something.
Yeah, absolutely. The one I think that's my favorite to share is that a few weeks ago, I was giving the presentation and I asked for, the between the videos question or observation. And a student came up and said, it was after they had done the interview, or like the interview portion. So they had asked a scientist a question and a kid came up and they were like, how did they know? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, how did they know that that's what we were going to ask? And he was like, I mean, you got them to answer the question. How did you get them to answer the question? And I was like, well, I actually asked them all 3 questions and I have all 3 videos ready. And the whole class was like, oh my gosh, that's so many videos. I was like, yeah, I filmed them all, I know. But it was cool to see that. I feel like, I mean, kids, the 4th graders are roughly usually the age group that we're working with. They're so much more technically advanced. I mean, technology like advanced than I was at their age. And so I really felt like I didn't fool any of them. Like they all knew, they were like, this is a PowerPoint, blah, 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 blah. But it was fun to still see that there was still kind of a little bit of this magic of like, oh my gosh, our choices are making an impact. How is she doing this? So that was probably one of my favorite moments of this project.
I don't see any more questions. There's some nice comments, like a whole bunch of really nice comments in the chat. I don't see any other questions though. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that she did do some other things too, like got to do some fire training, and also helped us with. We have a nice relationship with a visual artist from Miami, and Deborah Mitchell, and that was the only tour that we gave the last year and a half was for this artist that came a couple of times. So she got to do some other stuff too. Did you have any other things that you wanted to share before we sign off?
I feel like I have really covered it. So no. Thank you all for listening to me and for helping Dustin and I this past year. Again, that's really what made our jobs a lot easier and a lot more fun.
Oh, I see we do have a couple of raised hands. The problem is that we're in webinar mode, so I don't think there's too much we can do about having raised hands. So hopefully you're able to ask your question.
Let me see. I'll allow one of them to talk really quickly.
Okay, I see Liz Hellman.
Hey, Liz, you should be allowed to talk. You may have to unmute yourself.
Liz is a longtime Archbold person. Liz, if you can unmute yourself, you're welcome to ask your question. And I guess that's it. I don't see anybody. That was just Liz with the hand up.
It may be a mistake. Or it may be, I know in the meetings you can now clap for people. So maybe it was a clap.
Okay, we'll take it as a clap. Well, good job, Margaret. I'm definitely really gonna miss having you around. It's gonna be really not nearly as fun having you in the office. So thank you and have a wonderful day. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you, Margaret. And you were great. And I'm not just saying that because you called me a queen twice, but thanks to everyone else for attending today. And for all of the avian ecology fans, July is looking like it'll be another Bird is the Word month. So please watch our website, newsletter, and Facebook page for information for when all of these intern seminars are scheduled. We'll see you soon.